The focal point of this video is the center of gravity and the line of gravity. When observing the client's posture, I usually quickly check for where their center of gravity is, and that is before I look at the specifics of where they hold their different body parts in space. Now just a few words about the center of gravity, or COG, when the client is standing. I do stress the word standing here, as the center of gravity is not always in the same place. It is pretty much depending on what position the body is in. It is in different places when we are sitting, standing, or lying. But not only that, it also depends on how we are sitting or standing or lying. And to make things even more complicated, it isn't even always within the body. If the client is standing close to anatomical position, the center of gravity is located deep to the navel, anterior to the sacrum. Here's what that will look like on the skeleton. And if we have a look side on, it will be roughly halfway between the front and the back of the body. Now that we have established the idea of a center of gravity, we will spin that a bit further and visualize a vertical line like a plumb line that goes through the center of gravity. We will call this line the line of gravity, or LOG. Like a plumb line, that imaginary line of gravity will be perpendicular to the ground. And in an ideal case scenario, it will hit the ground just in the middle between the feet. Now that we had a look front on, we have a look at the LOG from the side. We see that it will run through the center of gravity. Ideally, the line of gravity will pass through the mastoid process of the skull, run just anterior to the shoulder joint, go through the center of gravity, run through the greater trochanter of the femur, through the head of the fibula, and anterior to the lateral malleolus, so just in front of the ankle joint before it hits the ground. Try to memorize those positions. We will need them a lot later on. I'll go through those landmarks on the skeleton again. So first off, we start with the mastoid process. Then we said anterior to the shoulder joint, before it runs through the center of gravity. Then it goes through the greater trochanter, through the head of the fibula, and again anterior to the lateral malleolus. I went through those landmarks twice. As I said, they're very important for the lateral view of postural analysis, and try to remember those positions, as we will get to them frequently when we employ the lateral postural views with a plumb line. Now, another concept I want to bring here is the base of support. When we have a look at the feet, they build our base of support in most cases. In other words, the outline around our feet is our base of support, and ideally the center of gravity is always within this base. If it is not, we have to use muscle force to hold us in position, or we have to extend the base of support. That can be by creating a bigger stance, for example, or we have to move, as in walking or running, so we can again bring the center of gravity within our base of support. If we cannot manage that, we are bound to fall. So from what we've learned so far, in an ideal case scenario, we said according to the anterior view, the center of gravity should be somewhere along the middle between the feet. And according to the lateral view, it should be anterior to the medial malleoli. So the center of gravity should be where the two lines intersect, or in other words, the line of gravity should touch the ground here. And if we take the auxiliary lines off, this is what it should look like. On the next few slides, there are a couple of examples where the center of gravity is not over the base of support. Always watch for the 2 feet and the red star representing the center of gravity in the top of the left corner of the image. The red line is the line of gravity. If someone leans forward, their center of gravity will shift forward also. Watch the star top left on the next few slides to see where the center of gravity is in relation to the base of support. Here it is between the toes, so just still within the base of support. Here the clients moved a bit forward out of the base of support. The muscles at the back of the body will have a lot of work trying to prevent James from keeling over here, and with a lot of luck he can hold his position if he brings his arms back far enough. That does not bode too well here. Things are far gone and the center of gravity is way out of the base of support. If James wants to keep his position upright, he now has to either step forward to increase his base of support or hold on to something to again increase his base of support. In this position, even a lunge forward might be too late. And on this slide, the line of gravity is already off the chart to the right. He's a goner. That's a good position for diving off a cliff into hopefully obstacle-free water. Everything else has to be decelerated by the arm muscles, which will now hopefully decelerate the fall. Can use the Neoface for that purpose too, of course. But now let's get back to our actual observations. We have now established what this imaginary line of gravity is, and what the center of gravity is, and what the base of support is. The next thing, we will visualize where this line of gravity, if it were real, would hit the ground. So getting back to our ideal case, we said the line of gravity is along the midline, so it should be right somewhere in the middle between both feet, and it should intersect with a line that runs through the medial malleoli, or to an imaginary line or point anterior to the medial malleoli, and the center of gravity or the line of gravity should hit where the star is on this image. Have your client walk around on the spot a bit, preferably with their eyes closed. Then ask them to relax into a comfortable position and open their eyes again. The idea here is not to have them stand at attention, but to stand as relaxed as possible. Only this way you can see how they're holding their body in space. And here he stands. You can immediately see that this looks somewhat distorted. Have a guess as to where the center of gravity would be now. Looks like around here. Now an imaginary line of gravity through it. You see straight away that it's off the midline to the right. And it's the client's right here I'm talking about. That means the center of gravity is likely to be somewhere along this line here. And if we now have a look side on and we see, let's say that the line of gravity has shifted quite a bit forward from where it should be, namely the anterior aspect of the lateral malleolus, then you get your second line. And where those two intersect, you consequently get the center of gravity. That should be right above this point in the base of support. So here it is without the lines. Also, to explain this concept to your client, ask them to close their eyes and to think of where they feel the center of gravity is. Now, say they shall envisage a plumb line that dangles down from the center of gravity, and they should guess as to where that would hit the ground. Then ask them to point with the finger to where the plumb line would hit the ground. So where do they think their line of gravity will hit the ground? And you heard right, you let them point to it, not tell you. Never tell a client where something is, always ask them to point with their finger onto it. This is a much clearer communication usually. And see whether you get the same result. And this initial exercise gives you a good idea as to where they hold their bodies in space, where their center of gravity is in space, and you get the first indication which muscle or muscles or muscle groups might be involved in pulling the center of gravity out of its natural alignment. And that's about it about the center of gravity, the line of gravity, and the base of support. I'll be back.